here to talk about NextGen within CII. If some of you will remember last year, we shared some thoughts that we had about some brainstorming and ways that we can continue to move the needle within CII. So we are here today to give you an update on what's been happening in the past year and a little bit of insight into what the hope is for the future, including your role in that. Before we get started, I will go ahead and let everyone introduce themselves. My name is Jodie Kim. I'm a manager with Deloitte Infrastructure and Capital Projects.
My name is Mona Haggag, and I'm a principal with Continuum Advisory Group.
I'm Collin Tsui with Fluor.
Annabella Martin with Hilti.
And Jamie Gerbrecht with ExxonMobil.
Melissa Marcum, Eli Lilly and Company.
Great. So if we can go to the next slide, please. You might remember we shared 3 main components that we thought were important within a CII group. Thank you. The first was connecting locally. All of us come annually here or wherever the conference is, but so many of us are located down the street from each other. So why don't we encourage connections locally where we are throughout the year? The second component is onboarding, lowering that barrier of entry to CII. It's a lot to take in, and this is something that we think will encourage the next generation to participate, in addition to other companies that aren't members in your neighborhoods. The third component is research. Research is a pillar within CII, and we would love to reimagine some ways that we can also tackle the research concept. So with that, I would love to ask Mona who the target audience is in your mind for CII.
Absolutely, Jodie. It's everybody. That's the long and short of it. Our purpose is to engage the next generation of industry leaders in CII research, discourse, and community. But the really important part of it, and something that I actually want to talk about a little bit more, is that NextGen is often a term that's used to describe newer upcoming technology, things that are particularly innovative or interesting and useful. But in this case here, we also believe NextGen is a mentality and not an age. And so as we start to describe some of our objectives with this initiative, if you will, it's really critical that people understand that this program or this method of operating is really contingent upon people of all ages and all experience levels coming together. It's mentoring in both directions, and that's going to be critical for the success of this program.
Thank you. So let's hop into that first pillar, local connects. We will hear about some of the details. I'll quickly summarize. We had 3 events this past year, 2 in Houston and 1 in Washington, D.C. In D.C., it was more of an informal networking opportunity for people to get to know one another. And in Houston, they tackled it from more of an educational lens. So Collin, could you tell me a little bit about how the Houston events went?
Yeah, absolutely. With Houston, the tack that we took was we wanted to offer something of value for individuals within the Houston construction community, something that draws them to the event, that in turn helps us build that critical mass to have a self-sustaining community. So the first event that we held was in December last year, hosted at the University of Houston. And in that event, we talked about advanced work packaging and the specifics of what it took to implement it on a project and examples of what happened on the project and very detailed level what happens in the execution phase. And the feedback that we got was tremendous, and the attendees really appreciated the level of detail we went into. So when we planned our second event, we really kept that in mind, and we held our second event in June of this year, hosted graciously by Bentley, and we talked about modularization, and within modularization, the do's and don'ts and things to watch out for on a project. And again, great feedback from the audience, and really resonated with them on project level, what it means when you're putting it, when the wheels hit the ground, what happens on a project.
Definitely, thank you. There were a total of 96 participants between these 3 events, and that represented 40 companies of the membership, which we were really excited to see that participation. So Anabella, could you please tell us a little bit about who was there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and this has been alluded to in this conference, right? At the end of the day, it's us as individuals and as people that will be able to affect the change, not the organizations themselves. So at the AWP luncheon that we had at the end of December, we had Kim Allen that came and shared with University of Houston students, recent graduates, and even some people that were just wanting to come and learn more about advanced work packaging. How do they get into CII, right? Giving them access to that information. Keith Letzos from Worley and Lane Berger from Fluor talked about how they're taking AWP into their organizations, right? What are the practical steps that they're doing? So it was very, having that face-to-face interaction and having some of those discussions even afterwards allowed people to get more nuggets, as Eric Cravella likes to say, of things that they could bring back to their organizations and try to implement. Similarly, Mike Cluck from KBR and my advisor from many years ago, Dr. Jim O'Connor, shared the same on modularization. Mike shared the things that worry him about modularization. So what are the things that you need to look out for that maybe we don't consider? So bringing it down to a level where it's easy for people to absorb that and figure out how they can apply it to their organization. Additionally, in Houston, like you mentioned, we've been building a little bit more of structure and an educational program, and there have been other members within that group that have helped us. Jamie, Eric Cravella from Bentley, Mike Reed from Dow. So if you guys don't mind, I'd like at this time, for those that have been mentioned, if you're here, if you could stand up, I'd like to just recognize you. It's a limited number of people, and we need more.
Thank you, Anabella. Jamie, could you please tell us from your attendance in Houston what you got out of it?
Sure, thanks, Jodie. So one of the things I was really pleased to see was how easily we were able to obtain full attendance, full participation there in the Houston area with this Local Connect. By holding the first event at the University of Houston, we were able to connect well with the university students. And for those of us that could stay a bit after the main timing of the event, we had an excellent opportunity to continue to interact with the attendees on CII overall, what we do with CII, the opportunities that are there, and as well on several of the key additional topics beyond AWP. So in that first event, we asked for input from the attendees on future topics that they would recommend that we cover in Local Connect events. And it was also good to see there that we had some alignment with the best practices of CII with what those recommended topics were. So we look forward to the additional opportunities to bring those topics to the local area. The desire is there. Again, a very well attended couple of events so far.
Great, thank you. Collin, could you wrap us up and point us to the future with regard to these Local Connects? Where do we see this going?
With Local Connects, what we want to do is have Local Connect be an entry point, like you mentioned earlier, Jodie, for folks that are not here with us this week or other CII conferences, be that entry point for those individuals and connect those individuals to other activities within CII. And I think we're going to cover those as we go into the conversation, what those points are. But just bring them into the CII and engage them in some way so that CII members get more value out of their memberships.
Definitely. And Houston and DC were the two pilot cities for this, very well received. And so we're hoping to expand to a city near you in this coming year. And we'll talk about what that might look like. But definitely hope that this does continue to expand. Mona, let's transition to the second pillar of onboarding and lowering that barrier of entry that we've alluded to. How does this Local Connects idea complement that onboarding concept?
It does in a lot of ways. If you look at these collage photos right now, people are very excited and happy. So let's keep that in mind. So there are a couple things that we hope will be covered in the Local Connect events, and really these are in-person opportunities. So Jodie and I are actually down the street from one another in the DC metro area, and so it's pretty easy for us to coordinate. But the great part about having this event was you could bring in people who were fairly early in their career journey from various organizations. In the DC metro area, we have a lot of federal organizations. And again, in a budget-constrained environment, it's great to be able to send somebody to an event that's after 5 p.m. on a work day, only takes about an hour. You can come in and out as you need to, because again, we're all busy professionals, and start to engage. Learn about what's in the knowledge base, get these introductory conversations going. We had people who were presenting, actually, Mauricio was just at the DC event was talking about the presentation that he was going to debut here today, which you just heard. So these are great engagement opportunities. You can also dovetail them with CBA events, CBA meetings, and committee meetings as well. So these things, the idea is that it can be integrated into existing CII objectives and activities, but as ways to start pulling in people and physically engaging them in the subject material and the leading practices. One other thing to keep in mind is maximizing the value of your membership. So when you have a CII membership, it applies to all people in your organization. It's a great staff development opportunity. You may only be able to bring a handful of people, or in the case of some organizations, a dozen people to the conference, which is amazing. But this is a way to say, you know, I have somebody, I want them to learn more about advanced work packaging, or I want to connect them with an expert in facility lifecycle cost estimation or modularization. How do I send them out, learn from their peers without spending a lot of money? Well, guess what? It's going to cost you less than $20 to send somebody out there and engage in this event, and it's included in your membership.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Let's talk about the third pillar. Melissa, how does this NextGen aim to connect with CII's research initiatives?
Yeah, great question, Jodie. So I think following on what all of my colleagues here have talked about, research is one of the areas that's key to CII. So we've heard a lot over the last 2 days about research. We've been flooded with a lot of great information from research teams. So one of the questions is, what do we do with it, and how do we get to it? So one of the things we talked about with the education piece as well is teach people how to use the knowledge base and find out all the material that's on there. So we've seen some of the research from 20 years ago coming back and being refreshed. So I think that's a great example. If we want to find a way to intertwine that with the NextGen Local Connects, I think that would be a great opportunity to find out how some of existing research can still apply today. So we talked about that as well as the visibility and outreach. So we had a kind of a call to action earlier, and we heard from Stephen and Steve yesterday as well that what we really need to do is involve more people, the NextGen people and people from your company. So we're relying on everyone here today to go back and take this initiative and get people involved on the research team. So I know being on social media frequently during the day, like a lot of other people, I've seen some Twitter and LinkedIn posts on research teams kicking off. I think it's a great way to get involved. If you don't know the opportunities yourself, you can find those on the CII site as well as in the social media. And we ask you to take those back to your colleagues as well if you have somebody in mind. And the last thing we talked about is kind of a mini research topic, and this came up as part of the Local Connect. We already have an education piece and a networking, and we said, what if we could find a way to make research part of that? Instead of having maybe a 2-year, 3-year research effort, what if we could use some lunch and learns or some after-work activities to get people involved, to generate ideas, maybe do some Kaizen events, and find a way to really integrate research into the NextGen and the Local Connect.
Thank you. Great. So Collin, we've already alluded to some of the action items, but what's our request of our audience? How can they help us out?
Well, I think it's more, the question's more how can we help our audience leverage their CII membership to gain more value? And that's really what this is all about. How do we get more individuals engaged in CII activities? Because CII is one of those things where the more you engage with it, the more you get out of it. So for action items that we can look into, it's joining or starting a Local Connect committee. If you're in Houston or in Washington, we have 2 existing committees. We're always looking for more volunteers and more individuals that can help us organize these events and network. So that's an easy way. Now, if you're in another city, let us know who you are. Let us know where you are so that we can connect we can connect you to anyone that's geographically close that's interested so that you can start a committee. And between those of us on stage, we've done this twice already, so we can definitely provide the resources and the know-how to make it happen. We know how to get it off the ground. So that's the first one, being part of the Connect committees. You can also take an easier level of commitment and attend one of the events that's happening. I think the event is where the value creation really happens. That's where the members learn about something from the knowledge base, where they network, or where they participate in research and generate new knowledge. So that's another way for your organization to gain value out of Local Connect. And then another one is encourage participation. Every one of us is busy, but we can always think of someone in our organization that would benefit. So this is something we can actually do right now and take a few seconds. Just think of 2 names, 2 people in your organization that's not here this week that would benefit from one of the events we just described. Who are those people, and would you think they could gain something from being involved? Now we're gonna move to that last point. Let us know your interest, and this is where I'm gonna ask something that presenters typically don't do. Take out your phones and look on your conference app. On either the main page or the menu tab, you'll see a NextGen survey. So if either you or one of those 2 names that you thought of would like to participate, let us know who you are. Let us know what city you're in. We'll provide you the information so that you can do that.
Great. Thank you, Collin. Just to reiterate, we'd love to see a bunch of cell phones out right now. Okay, I see them. Please do share that information with us, because it's not just about helping us out, but this is also helping you and your companies and the next generation of leaders as well.
And it's okay, we're from the next generation. You can be on your cell phone. We understand it's multitasking, and we're totally okay with that. So go ahead and take it out and start punching those names in.
I think I want to add one thing, which is we don't want to have a high barrier to entry. So for example, Jodie and I, when we got together, we both have pretty intense schedules. I'm on the road a lot, but we have a pretty good set. You have somebody volunteer to host it at their facility. You somehow find a way to procure some snacks, and you find some kind of programming or material. CII is a wealth of knowledge and information, so it shouldn't be a large ask. It should be an hour or 2 to planning time. I understand that Houston put together some very comprehensive learning events, but don't make it hard to do. Do what's within your capacity. If you want to do more, great. If you do less, great, because you may attract somebody who has the energy and the bandwidth to do it for you, and you can engage with those people and have them put it on. So make it easy on yourselves. The expectation is not to create something difficult. The expectation is to begin that innovation, begin that new program.
It's really about connecting people, right? At the end of the day, this is about connecting new people to this great body of knowledge and experience that we want to be able to continue for decades to come. Thank you very much for your time. And now we have a few minutes for questions.
All right. Thank you. Excellent conversation, and we have a lot of questions for you. We'll take a couple. And the recurring question is more about how you are communicating and publicizing your events. What is your typical way of letting the word out?
Great question. So I'll say the CII staff have been really helpful with this. They've pulled together some great flyers, and they distribute it through the emails that they have in the system. But we also reached out via LinkedIn, and then in DC at least, Mona and I reached out to peers at companies that weren't even members and encouraged them to attend, and we definitely got some attendance through that and interest in CII because of it. So a combination, I think the networks, but also the CII staff have been very invaluable of connecting us.
And if you're subscribed to the CII social media, that's where a lot of the publicity is happening as well. And we're also trying to spread the news through the various sector committees and other committees that are related to the topic that's being discussed.
Okay.
Events.
Is this only another question for CII members? What about people who are not members?
Definitely not.
Yeah, this is for CII members and non-members. So it's also a great way to bring in other organizations that just don't know about CII. The great thing about having more people in our membership is that it gives us better data. It gives us more peers to share information with, and it just makes us a stronger organization.
So besides the app information or the survey, where can people find information about the NextGen group?
Great question. We are in the process of establishing a webpage on the CII website, so stay tuned. That will hopefully be a helpful connection point. And our goal isn't to create a separate silo of activity and involvement and even people, but to really be a connecting tissue to the broader organization. So on that site, we hope to have easily accessible information of if you're looking to get plugged in this sort of activity or this type of research, sign up now, here's the deadline. And connecting to the stuff that's already there that might be harder to navigate to if you don't know the ins and the outs already.
Okay, that's good. That's a good segue for the next question. Why is the NextGen group not a formal CI committee?
Good question. This comes up a lot, actually, and just like Jodie alluded to, we don't want to be a separate entity. We just want to integrate a CII, all generations, together with the activity. So we were very intentional in not forming any kind of separate activities or groups. We don't report to any type of a sector at this time. We just are a group of people who are enabling communication throughout CII.
Okay. So again, we have a few more questions, and I think we still have a couple more minutes. Have you considered, or CI considered, having local chapters in key cities throughout the U.S.? Have you got this question before?
That's an executive committee question.
So,
I'm just going to defer to you.
good answer. So I asked Stephen about that question, and that is actually in the works. So CI is considering doing that. They're open to people who are interested in doing that. So that was discussed in the Strategic Planning Committee meeting on Monday, yes. So it is in the works, not only the global affiliates, but also local chapters within the U.S. and strategic cities. So thank you for the question. And another question, maybe the last one, do you engage the NextGen group with the PIP and the PBF roundtable?
So we have not done that yet, but we definitely think there are opportunities to collaborate with other organizations. We don't need to stay separate. I think it's going to be a balance of respecting what CII has and what the members are involved to get out of the value. But I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity to collaborate in the future. This past year was a bit of a kickoff trial run year, and there are a lot of ways this continues to grow in the future.
Okay, we have 39 more seconds, so one more.
All right.
It's a good question. What about webinars or other things online besides in person?
I mean, for connecting NextGen?
Yeah, for meeting with other NextGens that are not in Houston or Washington, D.C., you know.
Oh, like if you're in North Dakota or Mississippi, what do you do? It happens. I was kidding. Those came up during the SPC committee. You know, that's a great idea. I mean, why not? Why not create something? Why not get on Skype calls? You know, I work in an organization where a lot of my peers are all over the country, and we use Zoom conference and each other's spaces. I mean, or Google Hangouts, whatever it is. Why not?
Those are great ideas. Keep them coming. Whoever wrote the question, keep those coming to us. Those are what we need to work on. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your update and the presentation and the invitation for people to join. Thank you so much. Please help me thank them for your participation.